Isabella walked into the living room, noticing the dim light casting shadows on the walls. The gentle hum of the air conditioner was the only sound breaking the silence. Her husband, Henry, sat at the dining table, a brand new laptop open in front of him. Curiosity piqued, she approached quietly, catching sight of a note beside it that read, "To my beloved wife." "Henry, is this for me?" she asked, smiling warmly as she reached for the note. Without warning, Henry's face contorted with anger. He slammed the laptop shut, snatching the note away with such force that it almost tore. "This is none of your business," he barked, his voice a sharp contrast to the usual calm tone he reserved for her. Isabella stood frozen, her smile fading into a look of confusion. "What's going on, Henry? Why are you so upset?" He stood up abruptly, his chair scraping against the floor. "I said it's none of your business," he repeated, shoving the laptop into its box with clumsy, hurried movements. "Just leave it alone, Isa." "Leave it alone? How can I when you're acting like this?" Isabella's voice wavered between anger and hurt. She had never seen him like this before, and the sudden outburst was alarming. Henry didn't respond. He avoided her eyes, focusing instead on repacking the laptop with almost obsessive care. Finally, he grabbed the box and stormed out of the room, leaving Isabella standing there, bewildered and hurt. She sank into a chair, her mind racing. Why had he reacted so strongly? The note was so sweet, and yet his reaction was anything but. For a moment she wondered if she had done something wrong, but she quickly dismissed the thought. This wasn't about her, it was about him and whatever secret he was hiding. The house felt eerily quiet after Henry's departure. Isabella looked around the room, her eyes landing on the place where the laptop had been. She replayed the scene in her mind, trying to make sense of it. Nothing about Henry's behavior made sense lately. He had been distant, irritable, and secretive for weeks. She stood up, pacing the room. "This isn't normal," she muttered to herself. "Something's going on with him, and I need to find out what." Isabella knew she couldn't let this go. The Henry she married was kind, patient, and loving. The man who had just stormed out was a stranger. Determined to get to the bottom of it, she decided she would talk to him later, when he had calmed down. She needed answers, and she needed them soon. Over the past 2 months, Henry's behavior had grown increasingly erratic. He would disappear for hours, return home late without explanation, and seemed perpetually on edge. This latest outburst left Isabella more bewildered than ever. The next morning, Isabella found herself sitting at the kitchen table, staring blankly at her untouched cup of coffee. Henry had already left for work, leaving a tense silence in his wake. She couldn't shake the feeling of unease that had settled over her like a heavy blanket. She decided she needed to talk to someone who could offer her some perspective. Picking up the phone, she called her best friend, Sophia. "Sophia, I don't know what to do." "Henry's been acting so strange," Isabella confided, her voice trembling slightly. Sophia, always a pillar of support, listened intently. "What do you mean, strange? Is he yelling at you?" Isabella sighed. "Not just that. He's been disappearing for hours, coming home late, and he's always on edge. Last night he freaked out over a laptop. I mean, it was like he was a different person." Sophia paused before responding, her voice filled with concern. "That doesn't sound like Henry at all. Have you tried talking to him about it?" "I've tried, but he just gets defensive and shuts down." "I don't know what to do anymore," Isabella admitted, her frustration evident. "Maybe you should see a family psychologist, Isa. It sounds like you both need to talk to someone who can help you figure this out," Sophia suggested gently. Isabella nodded, even though Sophia couldn't see her. "You're right. I just can't shake this feeling that something's terribly wrong." Henry came home from work, his face set in a mask of weariness. Isabella approached him cautiously, determined to address the issue calmly. "Henry, can we talk?" she asked softly. He glanced at her, his eyes hardening. "What is it, Isa? I had a long day." "I know, but we need to talk about what's been happening between us. You've been so distant, and last night." "Last night was nothing," he interrupted, his tone dismissive. "I'm just stressed with work. Can we drop it? Isabella took a deep breath, trying to stay composed. Henry, it's more than just last night. You've been different for weeks. Disappearing, coming home late. I'm worried about you. Henry's expression softened slightly, but there was still a barrier between them. I told you, it's work. I don't want to talk about it. Feeling the conversation slipping away, Isabella made one last attempt. Henry, please. We're married. We need to be able to talk to each other. Henry sighed heavily, rubbing his temples. Fine, I'll try to be better. But can we not do this now? I'm exhausted. Isabella nodded reluctantly, knowing she wasn't going to get any more out of him tonight. Okay, but we need to talk about this soon. The next day, Isabella took Sophia's advice and called a family psychologist. She made an appointment for the following week, but knew she needed to talk to someone immediately. She decided to meet Sophia for coffee. As they sat in their favorite cafe, Isabella poured out her heart. Sophia listened intently, her brow furrowing with each new detail. I just don't get it, Sophia. He's never been like this before, Isabella said, her voice tinged with desperation. Sophia was shocked. Henry always seemed so perfect on social media. He was always posting about how much he loved you and the wonderful things he was doing. Isabella's brow furrowed. What social media? Henry barely knows how to use his phone, let alone social media. Sophia's confusion matched Isabella's. He's been posting for the last 2 months, Isa. Beautiful pictures, heartfelt messages. You really didn't know. Isabella shook her head, her mind racing. No, I had no idea. Why would he do that? Sophia shrugged, clearly baffled. I don't know. But it doesn't make sense that he'd be so different online than he is at home. Isabella's heart sank. I need to find out what's going on. This isn't the Henry I married. As they finished their coffee, Isabella felt a mix of determination and dread. Something was definitely wrong, and she was going to get to the bottom of it. Isabella took Sophia's advice to heart. The next day, she scrolled through a list of family psychologists in the area, feeling a knot of anxiety in her stomach. She finally settled on one with good reviews and called to make an appointment. The earliest slot was for the following week, which felt like an eternity away. Still, it was a step forward. She decided she couldn't wait that long to talk to someone. She needed to see Sophia in person. Isabella called her, and they arranged to meet at their favorite cafe, the cozy little place they often retreated to during tough times. As Isabella walked into the cafe, the comforting aroma of freshly brewed coffee greeted her. Sophia was already there, sitting at a corner table, her expression one of concern and empathy. Hey, Isa, Sophia said warmly, standing up to give her friend a hug. You look like you haven't slept. I haven't, Isabella admitted, sitting down and wrapping her hands around the warm cup Sophia had already ordered for her. I just can't stop thinking about everything. Sophia leaned in, her face serious. Tell me everything. Isabella took a deep breath and started from the beginning, recounting Henry's strange behavior, the incident with the laptop, and the growing distance between them. Sophia listened intently, her brows knitting together. Isa, this doesn't sound like the Henry I, no. He's always been so loving and attentive. Are you sure there's nothing else going on at work that's stressing him out? I've asked him, Sophia. He keeps saying it's just work, but it feels like he's hiding something. And then you mentioned his social media, which I had no idea about. It's like he's living a double life, Isabella said, her voice shaking. Sophia took a sip of her coffee, thinking. You said he started this social media thing 2 months ago. Did anything else change around that time? Isabella thought back, her mind sifting through the events of the past few months. Nothing that stands out. I mean, we've both been busy, but nothing significant happened. Maybe he's going through something he doesn't know how to talk about, Sophia suggested gently. Men can be weird about expressing their feelings. Maybe, Isabella said, unconvinced, but it feels like more than that. It's like he's pulling away from me on purpose. Sophia reached across the table and squeezed Isabella's hand. I'm glad you made an appointment with a psychologist. Maybe they can help you both figure this out. In the meantime, you need to take care of yourself, Isa. You can't help Henry if you're falling apart. Isabella nodded, appreciating Sophia's unwavering support. You're right. I just hate feeling so helpless. You're not helpless, Sophia reassured her. You're taking steps to fix this. And no matter what, I'm here for you. Back at home, Isabella decided to take a proactive step. She sat down at her computer and searched for Henry's social media account. It didn't take long to find it. She felt a pang of hurt as she scrolled through the posts. There were pictures of dinners they never had, gifts she never received, and loving messages she had never heard. One post stood out, a picture of the laptop with the caption, "A special gift for my beloved Isabella." The date on the post was the same day Henry had exploded at her for seeing the laptop. It didn't make sense. Why would he post something so loving and then react so angrily in real life? Determined to understand, Isabella delved deeper into the account. She noticed that many of the comments were from people she didn't recognize. One name popped up repeatedly: Sarah. Her heart skipped a beat. Sarah was Henry's ex-girlfriend, the one who had broken his heart years ago. They hadn't been in contact for years at least. That's what Henry had told her. Isabella's mind raced. Could Sarah have something to do with Henry's recent behavior? She needed to know more. Isabella decided to keep an eye on Henry's activities and dig deeper into his social media interactions. She knew it was risky, but she needed answers. As the week crawled by, Isabella felt like she was living in a state of constant anxiety. She couldn't shake the feeling that something was terribly wrong, but she held on to the hope that the upcoming appointment with the psychologist would bring some clarity. When the day of the appointment finally arrived, Isabella felt a mix of relief and apprehension. She was ready to face whatever truths might come to light, but she was also scared of what she might discover. Holding on to Sophia's words of support, she took a deep breath and prepared to take the next step in uncovering the mystery behind Henry's strange behavior. Isabella sat at the kitchen table, her laptop in front of her. The screen glowed softly in the dim light, illuminating her worried face. She took a deep breath and clicked on Henry's social media account, which she had found the previous day. Each click felt like opening a door to a room she wasn't sure she wanted to enter, but she knew she had to. Henry's profile picture was a recent one, taken at what looked like a fancy restaurant. He wore a suit and smiled confidently at the camera, so different from the man she had been living with these past few months. She scrolled through his posts, each one more perplexing than the last. There were photos of them together at places they had never been, captions about dates that never happened, and expensive gifts that had never been given. One particular post caught her eye. It was a picture of a laptop, the same one she had seen him with a few days ago. The caption read, "A special gift for my beloved Isabella." Isabella frowned, her heart heavy. Why would Henry post something so loving and then react with such anger when she saw it? She continued scrolling, looking for any clues that might explain his bizarre behavior. Among the comments, one name kept appearing: Sarah. Her heart sank. Sarah was Henry's ex-girlfriend, the one who had broken his heart years ago. She clicked on Sarah's profile and saw pictures of her with friends, at parties, and most disturbingly, with Henry. Isabella's hands trembled as she clicked on a recent photo of Sarah and Henry at a cafe, the same one Henry often visited. The caption read, "Catching up with old friends. So good to see you again, Henry." She felt a wave of nausea. Had Henry been seeing Sarah behind her back? The thought was unbearable. She needed to know more. She decided to message Sarah directly. Her hands shook as she typed. "Hi Sarah, this is Isabella, Henry's wife. I've noticed you and Henry have been spending time together. I'd appreciate if you could tell me what's going on. I'm very confused about his recent behavior." She hit send before she could second-guess herself. The wait for a response felt like an eternity. When Sarah finally replied, Isabella's heart pounded. "Hi Isabella, I didn't realize you didn't know. Henry and I have been catching up. He's been pretty open about it. If you have any questions, maybe you should ask him directly." Isabella clenched her fists. This wasn't the answer she wanted, but it confirmed her worst fears. She needed to confront Henry, but she needed more proof first. She decided to look through Henry's posts for any patterns. She noticed that his lavish posts started 2 months ago, coinciding with when his behavior began to change. He had posted about expensive gifts, fancy dinners and vacations that had never happened. It was clear he was trying to impress someone, and it was becoming evident who that someone was. That evening, Isabella waited anxiously for Henry to come home. When he finally walked through the door, she felt a mix of anger and sorrow. "Henry, we need to talk," she said, trying to keep her voice steady. He looked at her, his expression guarded. "What about?" "I found your social media account," she said, watching his reaction closely. "The one where you've been posting about our perfect life." Henry's face went pale. You did?" "Yes, and I saw all your posts. The gifts, the dinners, the laptop. None of it happened. Why, Henry? Why are you doing this?" Her voice cracked with the last question. He sighed heavily, rubbing the back of his neck. "Isa, it's complicated." "Make it simple for me," she said, crossing her arms. "Explain why you're lying about our life and why you're spending time with Sarah." Henry sank into a chair, his shoulders slumping. "I didn't mean for it to get this far. I wanted to show Sarah that I could give her the life she always wanted. I thought if I made it look real enough, she'd see me differently." Isabella's heart broke at his words. "So, you've been lying to impress her? What about us, Henry? What about me?" He looked up at her, his eyes filled with regret. "I never meant to hurt you, Isa. I was just trying to prove something to her, to myself. I got caught up in it." Isabella felt tears welling up in her eyes. "You've been living a lie, Henry, and you dragged me into it without even telling me. How could you?" Henry had no answer. He just looked away, unable to meet her gaze. Isabella took a deep breath, trying to steady her emotions. "I don't know what's going to happen next, Henry, but we can't keep living like this. We need help, and we need to figure out what we really want." Henry nodded slowly, knowing she was right. "I'll do whatever it takes, Isa. I'm sorry. I really am." But deep down, Isabella knew that this was just the beginning of a long and painful journey. She wasn't sure if their relationship could survive it, but she knew she had to try for her sake, if not for his. Determined to uncover the truth, Isabella decided to pay closer attention to Henry's movements. One evening she followed him as he left the house, trailing him at a safe distance. Her heart pounded with anxiety and a deep sense of betrayal. She needed answers, even if they were painful. Henry drove to a small, secluded cafe off on the outskirts of town. Isabella parked a few spots away and watched as he got out of the car and walked inside. From a distance, she could see him greeting a woman with a hug. Her breath caught in her throat when she recognized Sarah. Isabella's mind raced. What was Henry doing with his ex-girlfriend? She needed to get closer, to hear what they were talking about. She slipped out of her car and quietly made her way to a spot near the cafe's window, staying hidden in the shadows. She could hear bits of their conversation through the open window. Henry's voice was low and earnest, while Sarah's tone was light and playful. "It's been great catching up with you," Sarah Henry said, his voice filled with a warmth Isabella hadn't heard in months. "I've missed you." Sarah smiled, stirring her coffee. "I've missed you too, Henry. It's been too long. So how's married life treating you?" Henry sighed. "It's complicated. Things haven't been great between Isa and me." Isabella's heart sank. She strained to hear every word. "Really? I'm surprised. You always seemed so happy together," Sarah said, her voice dripping with feigned concern. "It's all a facade," Henry admitted, looking down at his hands. "I've been pretending everything is perfect, but it's not. I never stopped thinking about you, Sarah. I thought if I could show you that I could give you the life you wanted, maybe." Sarah reached across the table and took his hand. "Henry, you don't need to pretend. I believe you. But if you're not happy with Isabella, you need to be honest with him, and with yourself." Henry nodded, looking conflicted. "I know. It's just hard. I don't want to hurt her, but I can't keep living a lie. Isabella felt tears welling up in her eyes. She had heard enough. Her worst fears were confirmed. Henry was still in love with Sarah, and he was willing to destroy their marriage to be with her. She quietly slipped away, her heart heavy with betrayal. Isabella waited in the living room, her emotions a mix of anger, sadness, and betrayal. When Henry finally came home, she was ready to confront him. "Henry, we need to talk," she said, standing up as he walked through the door. He looked at her, his face tense. "Can it wait? I'm really tired." "No, it can't," Isabella replied firmly. "I followed you tonight. I saw you with Sarah." Henry's face went pale. "You what?" "I heard everything, Henry. I know you're still in love with her. I know you've been lying to me," Isabella said, her voice breaking. Henry slumped into a chair, burying his face in his hands. "Isa, I'm so sorry. I didn't want you to find out like this." "How else was I supposed to find out?" Isabella demanded, tears streaming down her face. "You've been pretending to be someone you're not, lying to me, and living a double life. Why, Henry? Why didn't you just tell me?" Henry looked up at her, his eyes filled with regret. "I thought I could handle it. I thought if I showed Sarah that I could give her the life she always wanted, she'd see me differently. But I never meant to hurt you." "But you did," Isabella said, her voice trembling. "You hurt me more than you can imagine, and now I don't know if we can ever fix this." Henry stood up, taking a step towards her. "Isa, please. I'll do anything to make it right. I love you, and I don't want to lose you." Isabella took a step back, shaking her head. "I need time to think, Henry. I don't know if I can trust you anymore." Henry's shoulders slumped, and he nodded slowly. "I understand. I'll give you all the time you need. Just know that I'm truly sorry." Isabella watched as he walked away, her heart heavy with uncertainty. She didn't know what the future held for them, but she knew she needed to take some time to figure out what she wanted and what she needed to do next. Isabella felt like she was living in a fog. Days blurred together as she tried to process the painful reality of Henry's betrayal. She had replayed the conversation she overheard at the cafe countless times in her mind, each time feeling the sting of his words anew. One evening, unable to bear the silence any longer, she decided to confront Henry once and for all. She needed to hear the truth from him directly, even if it broke her heart. When Henry came home, he found Isabella sitting on the couch, her eyes red from crying. He approached her cautiously, sensing the gravity of the moment. "Isa, we need to talk," he said, sitting down next to her. "I know you're hurting, and I want to make things right." Isabella took a deep breath, her voice shaking. "Henry, I need to know everything. No more lies. Why did you feel the need to impress Sarah? What's really going on?" Henry sighed deeply, running a hand through his hair. "It all started a few months ago when Sarah reached out to me. She said she wanted to catch up, and I thought it would be harmless, but then I realized that I still had feelings for her." Isabella's heart ached at his words, but she forced herself to stay composed. "So, you started pretending to have this perfect life to win her back?" Henry nodded, his eyes filled with regret. "Yes, I thought if I showed her that I was successful and happy, she'd see me differently. I bought expensive things, posted pictures of a life we never lived, all to impress her." "Why didn't you just tell me?" Isabella asked, her voice breaking. "Why did you have to lie and drag me into this?" "I didn't want to hurt you," Isa, Henry said, his voice soft. "I thought I could keep it separate, that you wouldn't have to know. But it got out of hand." Isabella felt tears streaming down her face. "You didn't want to hurt me. You lied to me, Henry. You betrayed our marriage. How could you think that wouldn't hurt?" Henry reached out to touch her hand, but she pulled away. "I know I've messed up. I know I've hurt you deeply, and I'm so sorry. I never stopped loving you, Isa. I just got lost trying to prove something to Sarah and to myself." Isabella looked at him, her eyes filled with sadness. "I don't know if I can ever trust you again, Henry. You've broken my heart." Henry's voice was barely a whisper. I understand if you want to leave, but please know that I'm willing to do whatever it takes to make this right. Isabella stood up, wiping her tears. I need some time to think. I can't just forgive and forget. You've shattered my trust, and I need to figure out what's best for me. Henry nodded, looking defeated. Take all the time you need. I'll be here, hoping that we can find a way to heal. Isabella walked upstairs to their bedroom, closing the door behind her. She sat on the bed, feeling the weight of the world on her shoulders. She knew she needed to make a decision, but the path forward seemed so unclear. Isabella decided to clear her head with a walk in the park. As she strolled along the path, she thought about everything that had happened. She thought about the life she had envisioned with Henry, and how it had crumbled before her eyes. She found a bench and sat down, pulling out her phone. She dialed Sophia's number, needing the comfort of her friend's voice. Hey, Isa, Sophia answered, her tone warm and concerned. How are you holding up? I'm struggling, Sophia, Isabella admitted. I confronted Henry and he admitted everything. I don't know what to do. I feel so lost. Sophia sighed. I'm so sorry you're going through this, Isa. It's okay to feel lost. What did he say? He said he got caught up in trying to impress Sarah and that he still loves me, but I don't know if I can trust him again, Isabella said, her voice cracking. Trust is hard to rebuild once it's broken, Sophia agreed. But you need to do what's best for you. Take your time to figure out what you really want. I just don't know if I can ever forgive him, Isabella whispered. The pain is too much. It's okay if you can't forgive him, Isa. You don't have to rush into any decisions. Take it one day at a time, Sophia advised gently. Isabella nodded, even though Sophia couldn't see her. Thank you, Sophia. I just needed to hear your voice. Anytime, Isa. You know I'm here for you, Sophia said reassuringly. Take care of yourself, okay? I will. Thanks again, Isabella said before hanging up. As she sat on the bench, watching the world go by, she felt a tiny glimmer of hope. She knew the road ahead would be difficult, but with the support of her friends and her own inner strength, she was determined to find her way through this heartbreak. The days after Isabella's confrontation with Henry were filled with a tense silence. They moved around the house like strangers, each wrapped in their own thoughts. Isabella knew she needed to make a decision, but first, she needed to have one final, honest conversation with Henry. One evening, after a particularly long and quiet day, Isabella decided it was time. She found Henry in the living room, staring blankly at the TV. She turned off the television and sat down across from him. Henry, we need to talk, she said, her voice steady but filled with emotion. Henry looked at her, his eyes weary. I know. I've been waiting for this. Isabella took a deep breath. I've been thinking a lot about everything about us, about what you did, and about what I need to do next. Henry nodded slowly. I understand. I've thought about it too. I just want you to know that I'm truly sorry for everything. I never wanted to hurt you. Why, Henry? Why did you think it was okay to deceive me like that? Isabella's voice cracked, but she held his gaze. Henry sighed, rubbing his temples. I got caught up in trying to impress Sarah. I felt like I needed to prove something to her, and to myself. I thought if I could show her that I was successful and happy, maybe she'd see me differently. I know it sounds pathetic, but that's the truth. Isabella shook her head, tears welling up in her eyes. And what about me, Henry? What about our marriage? Did you ever think about how your lies would affect me? I did, but by the time I realized how deep I was in, I didn't know how to get out. I was scared, Isa. I didn't want to lose you, but I didn't know how to fix it, Henry admitted, his voice filled with regret. Isabella wiped away a tear. You should have come to me, Henry. We could have worked through it together. But you chose to lie and deceive me instead. Henry reached out, but Isabella pulled back. I know I broke your trust, and I know it's not something that can be easily repaired. But I love you, Isa. I really do. I'm willing to do whatever it takes to make things right. Isabella stood up, feeling a surge of anger and sadness, Love isn't just about words, Henry. It's about actions, and your actions have shown me that I can't trust you anymore. Henry's shoulders slumped. I understand. I just hope that someday you can forgive me. Isabella took a deep breath, steadying herself. I don't know if I can forgive you, Henry. Not now, maybe not ever. But I do know that I can't keep living like this. I need to move on. I need to find happiness and peace for myself. Henry looked devastated. Are you leaving me? Isabella nodded, her heart heavy. Yes, I've already packed my things. I'll be staying with Sophia for a while until I can figure out my next steps. Henry's eyes filled with tears. Isa, I'm so sorry. I never wanted this to happen. I know, Henry. But it did. And now we have to live with the consequences, Isabella said, her voice softening. I hope you can find a way to fix whatever is broken inside you. But I need to take care of myself now. Henry stood up, wiping his eyes. I'll always love you, Isa. I hope you find the happiness you deserve. Isabella managed a small, sad smile. I hope you do too, Henry. Goodbye. As she walked out of the house, her suitcase in hand, Isabella felt a strange mix of sorrow and relief. She knew the road ahead would be difficult, but she also knew that she had made the right decision for herself. Isabella stood on the curb, waiting for her ride. The air was cool, and the streetlights cast a soft glow on the pavement. A car pulled up, and the window rolled down to reveal a familiar face. Need a ride? David asked with a warm smile. Isabella felt a surge of gratitude. Yes, thank you, David. He got out and helped her with her suitcase, placing it in the trunk. As they drove away, Isabella looked back at the house one last time, feeling a sense of finality. She turned to David, who glanced at her with concern. Are you okay? He asked gently. Isabella nodded, though tears filled her eyes. I will be. Thank you for being here. David reached over and gave her hand a reassuring squeeze. Squeeze. Anytime, Isabella. You deserve to be happy. As they drove into the night, Isabella felt a flicker of hope. She didn't know what the future held, but she was determined to find her way to a better, brighter tomorrow. The days that followed Isabella's departure from Henry were a whirlwind of emotions and adjustments. Staying with Sophia gave her a safe space to heal and think about her next steps. She found comfort in her friends' unwavering support and the familiar routines they fell into. One afternoon, as Isabella sat on Sophia's porch, sipping tea and watching the world go by, she felt a sense of calm she hadn't experienced in months. She knew she had made the right decision, but the path ahead still felt uncertain. Sophia joined her on the porch, carrying her own cup of tea. How are you feeling today, Isa? Isabella smiled faintly. Better, I think. It's strange, but I feel a sense of relief, like a weight has been lifted. Sophia nodded. That's good. It means you're starting to heal. Have you thought about what you want to do next? Isabella sighed, looking out at the street. I have. I think it's time for me to start fresh, maybe even move to a new city. I need a change of scenery, a new beginning. Sophia smiled warmly. That sounds like a great idea. A fresh start could be exactly what you need. Isabella's phone buzzed, interrupting their conversation. She glanced at the screen and saw a message from David. Hey Isa, just checking in. Hope you're doing okay. Let me know if you need anything. Isabella felt a warmth spread through her at his words. She had stayed in touch with David since the night he helped her leave Henry. His kindness and genuine concern had been a bright spot in her difficult journey. She replied, Thank you, David. I'm doing better. Maybe we could meet for coffee sometime. His response was immediate. I'd love that. Just let me know when and where. Isabella looked up at Sophia, a shy smile on her face. I think I'm going to meet David for coffee. Sophia's eyes sparkled with excitement. That's wonderful, Isa. He seems like a really good guy. Isabella nodded. He is. And I think it's time for me to start opening up to new possibilities. A few days later, Isabella met David at a cozy cafe downtown. She felt a mix of nervousness and excitement as she walked in and saw him waiting at a corner table. He stood up and greeted her with a warm smile. "Hi, Isabella." "It's great to see you," David said, pulling out a chair for her. "Hi, David." "Thanks for meeting me," Isabella replied, sitting down. They ordered their drinks and fell into easy conversation. David's gentle demeanor and genuine interest in her life made Isabella feel at ease. She found herself opening up about her plans and dreams for the future. "I've been thinking about moving to a new city," Isabella said, stirring her coffee. "I need a fresh start, a new beginning." David nodded, his eyes filled with understanding. "That sounds like a great idea. Change can be really healing. Do you have a place in mind?" "I'm not sure yet. I just know I need to start somewhere new," Isabella replied. David smiled. "Well, wherever you go, I'm sure you'll make it a wonderful new chapter in your life." Isabella felt a surge of gratitude. "Thank you, David. You've been so supportive, and it means a lot to me." David reached across the table and gently squeezed her hand. "You're a strong person, Isabella. You deserve to be happy." In the weeks that followed, Isabella began to make concrete plans for her move. She researched cities, looked for job opportunities, and even started packing up her belongings. Sophia helped her every step of the way, and David was always there with words of encouragement. One evening, as Isabella and Sophia packed up the last of her things, Sophia turned to her with a smile. "You're really doing it, Isa. You're starting a whole new chapter." Isabella nodded, feeling a mix of excitement and nervousness. "I am, and it feels good. Scary, but good." Sophia hugged her tightly. "I'm so proud of you, and I'll be visiting all the time, so you won't get rid of me that easily." Isabella laughed, feeling a sense of warmth and love. "I wouldn't have it any other way." The day of her move arrived, and as she loaded the last of her boxes into the moving truck, David showed up with a bouquet of flowers. "For your new home," he said with a smile. Isabella took the flowers, her heart swelling with emotion. "Thank you, David. You've been such a good friend." David hugged her. "I'm always here for you, Isa. And who knows, maybe I'll come visit you in your new city." Isabella smiled, feeling a sense of hope for the future. "I'd like that." As she drove away, Isabella looked at the road ahead with a mix of anticipation and determination. She knew the journey wouldn't be easy, but she was ready for whatever came next. Isabella's journey from betrayal and heartache to a new beginning was a testament to her strength and resilience. She faced the painful truth about her marriage and made the courageous decision to leave and start fresh. With the support of friends like Sophia and David, she found the courage to pursue a new chapter in her life. Isabella's story highlights the importance of seeking the truth, confronting it, and making bold decisions for one's well-being. Her determination to find happiness and peace, despite the obstacles, serves as an inspiration to others facing similar challenges. In the end, Isabella discovered that even in the face of heartbreak, there is always hope for a brighter, happier future. Let us know in the comments how this story has inspired you, or share your own experiences of overcoming adversity. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe for more heart-touching stories like this one. Hit the bell icon to stay updated with our latest uploads. Your journey through the complexities of the human heart starts now. Remember, your story isn't over yet. It's just a new chapter beginning. Stay strong, stay inspired.